Sota Minami was already dead inside before the world made it official. A 17-year-old shut-in who hadn't left his room in months. He lived online, insulated by games, sarcasm, and self-loathing. He felt more like a spectator than a participant in life. His family barely acknowledged him. He barely acknowledged himself. But one night, a strange message blinked onto his monitor. "Do you want to start over?" And for once, Sota didn't overthink it. He clicked. Darkness swallowed the screen, and him with it. When he awoke, it was in a world unlike his own. Skies of amethyst, ruins sprawled beneath mossy overgrowth, and a forest that thrummed with an eerie silence. For a moment, he wondered if he was dreaming. Then a translucent, ghostly notification appeared before him. Frowny face, fracture sigil. Your death shall be remembered by none. He didn't get a chance to question it. Within minutes, a grotesque armored beast emerged from the brush, massive, snarling, covered in living runes, and rammed a jagged lance through his torso. Pain, real and raw, drowned him. Then he opened his eyes. Same sky, same forest, same cracked stone under his back. The same moment, reset like the world had been saved to a file. No wounds, but the pain still echoed in his chest. He remembered everything. Everyone else remembered nothing. The realization came slowly, loop by brutal loop. He died trying to run, died hiding, died screaming for help from travelers who ran the moment he called out. But every time he came back, he retained more. He learned a bit more about the terrain. He noticed the beast's patterns. Eventually, he found ways to delay his death, distract, mislead, escape. But the fear never dulled. Neither did the pain. Returned by death, or what he began calling it in his journal, was not merciful. It preserved trauma, not just memory that he discovered. A village hidden behind the trees after dozens of resets. Relief turned to horror when the villagers called him a criminal. They said someone matching his appearance had tried to poison the town well. Sota hadn't done that. Not in this loop, anyway. But maybe a version of him had. Another reset he didn't remember? A time splinter? Either way, he was hated on sight. One loop later, he was ambushed by a masked girl, Saria, who hunted him like a monster. She wielded a curved blade and moved with uncanny precision. Every loop, she ended him swiftly. She spoke in riddles and warnings about his cursed thread. Sota learned to fear her more than the monsters. But Sota wasn't dumb. Weak, yes. Unskilled, but not dumb. Eventually, using what he remembered from prior loops, he tracked down a wanderer named Rail, an apprentice mage with a kind heart and loose morals. In one loop, he saved Rail from a beast attack. In another, he made a joke Rail had told him the loop before. Slowly, awkwardly, he earned his trust, even if it always vanished with death. Rail taught him spark magic and mana channeling basics. It nearly killed Sota, but the taste of power, earned power, was intoxicating. He began to blend sword drills stolen from watching guards with small incantations and potion recipes gleaned from herbalists. It took dozens of resets, but he crafted his first working sleep draft, then used it to sneak past a town checkpoint. Every timeline became a trial. Every death an education. But the burden began to build. In one loop, he saved Rail only to die later and return to a world where Rail had never met him. In another, Saria began to trust him, only for him to be forced to kill her when her blade turned against Rail. No one remembered what he lost. Only he mourned the versions of them that loved him. Eventually, he learned to exploit behavioral tells, manipulate events before they happened, and, after a crushing amount of trial and death, finally bested Saria without killing her. Instead, he trapped her with magic and told her the truth. He broke down, exhausted, terrified, tired of being the only one who remembered. He told her everything about the loops, the deaths, the failures. She didn't believe him, but something in his eyes, his tone, his cracks, gave her pause. "You're either a liar or a prophet of pain," she said. "Either way, I believe you." For the first time, someone trusted him, even if only in this loop. But happiness in this world was borrowed time that a robed figure arrived the next night. A sigil born like Sota, but more refined, stronger, and not alone. He slaughtered the village with dark magic and whispered something to Sota as he killed him. "You were never the only one given a second chance." Sota woke up gasping, but the checkpoint had changed. He was further along in the timeline now. The world had moved him. And just like that, everything he'd known, Rail, Saria's trust, the village's layout, was altered. No one remembered him. No one knew him. The weight hit like a blade. He wasn't in control of the reset. His checkpoints were chosen, not fixed. His power wasn't just a gift, that it was a trap. Sota awakens in a quiet, snow-covered forest. There's no screaming, no monsters, no fire or divine voice. Just the cold, the trees, and the sound of his own breathing. For once, death hasn't come for him again. He's alone, but not hunted. Stumbling through the woods, bloodied and exhausted, he discovers a small mountain village nestled in a secluded valley. The people call it Echoreach, a place forgotten by time, untouched by the sigils, politics, and monsters of the outside world. There are no magical auras here, no glowing hands or floating runes. Just warm fires, baking bread, and villagers who welcome him with simple kindness. They don't ask where he came from. They don't question his haunted eyes. They offer him soup, shelter, and a place by the fire. Suspicious, Sota tests the sanctuary. He loops, dies on purpose to see if they change. But each time he wakes in the same soft bedroll, under the same wooden roof, greeted by the same smiles. Yet there are slight differences in the way the villagers speak or prepare food. The peace feels real, but the village clearly resets with each loop, suggesting something deeper is at play. Over time, he becomes part of the community. He learns farming, repairs bridges, and trains under an old, one-armed ex-mercenary named Bran. He befriends a shy herbalist named Lyra who treats his wounds without judgment. He earns the trust of an inquisitive child named Leo, who calls him Mr. Ghost, as if instinctively sensing Sota's looping nature. He finds something dangerously close to happiness, but the peace comes with a cost. Sota notices a shimmering wall of mist at the forest's edge, something unnatural, like a boundary sealing the village in place. When he tries to pass through it, he instantly resets, waking back in bed as if nothing happened. Each time he tests the limits, more oddities emerge. Villagers begin recalling fragments from previous loops. A child finishes a sentence before Sota speaks it. Bran swears he already trained that sword form. And Lyra, gentle, quiet Lyra, starts drawing magical sigils in her journal she couldn't possibly know. Through research and repeated deaths, Sota uncovers the truth. Echoreach is not a village by normal means. It's a sealed spell, a sanctuary created centuries ago by a dying mage to preserve peace during an ancient catastrophe. It's powered by the subconscious emotional stability of its residents. They don't know they're in a loop, but their refusal to change fuels the magic. No one can grow. No one can die. They just exist. And Lyra is the anchor. Her soul is tied to the spell. Her memories, once sealed, begin bleeding through, and it becomes clear. If Sota wants to leave, the sanctuary will collapse, and Lyra will die permanently. In the final days of the arc, the spell begins to unravel. The mist creeps inward. The villagers panic, unable to comprehend the collapse. Lyra, now fully aware, chooses to stay behind and let the sanctuary end. "You were the only one who ever tried to change us," she tells him. "Don't waste that." She presses a single flower into his palm and vanishes with the crumbling valley as Sota walks into the storm, the world behind him dissolving into fog. When he awakens, there is no Echoreach, no trail, no people, just the flower in his hand, preserved by the loop. Proof it all really happened. Sota leaves with a heavier heart but a clearer sense of purpose. He now knows what peace feels like and what it costs. He carries the memory of Lyra with him, even if the world has forgotten her. After leaving Echoreach, Sota is found near death by a traveling group of mercenaries. They mistake him for a deserter and bring him to the fortress city of Velas Grave, a militarized stronghold ruled by a noble house constantly under siege from monstrous raids and political betrayals. It's a city where everything is bought with loyalty or blood. Sota keeps his head down, working as a scribe and tactician's assistant while hiding his abilities. He observes, learns, waits. That is, until he's caught in a web of war games, literally. Each year, the nobles of Velas Grave host a war game, a mock war between rising commanders meant to prepare for real sieges. But these aren't simple sparring matches. They are deadly battles fought with real troops, real weapons, and harsh magical conditions, all under the watchful eye of divine sigils that enforce rules, but not mercy. The winning team gains nobility, land, and a permanent seat at court. The losing teams often don't leave the arena alive. Sota, pressured by circumstance and caught in the wrong place during a noble's assassination attempt, is blackmailed into joining a disgraced commander's wargame team as their tactical advisor. The unit is underfunded, undermanned, and demoralized. The leader, Lady Caliph, is a cold but brilliant tactician cast out for opposing corrupt nobles. She's intrigued by Sota's sharp thinking and eerie intuition and reluctantly allows him into her inner circle. What she doesn't know is that Sota is using the wargame to exploit his loop ability to learn battle formations, enemy strategies, and test different outcomes at the cost of dying repeatedly. He starts calculating everything: terrain, morale, unit placement, magical resources, psychological manipulation. Slowly, over multiple deaths, he evolves from an untrained observer to a battlefield demon, all while keeping his resets a secret. He suffers devastating deaths, trampled, burned, tortured for intel, only to return and adjust accordingly. Every battle in the wargame becomes a strategic puzzle that he solves through sacrifice. He starts building relationships with the squad, even as he hides the fact that he's looped through their deaths dozens of times. The bond with Caliph becomes especially complex. She is sharp, distrustful, but passionate about justice. She begins to notice how much Sota seems to know about her without being told, how he sometimes finishes her thoughts or predicts enemy ambushes with supernatural accuracy. Eventually, he earns her trust, and then her suspicion that their team rises through the ranks of the wargame. They face enemy commanders with deadly magical abilities, a sigil binder who manipulates shadows and morale by feeding on fear, a necromancer who revives fallen soldiers as loyal specters, a beastmaster whose tamed wyverns make air support a living nightmare. Sota studies them, dies, resets, finds their weaknesses, then turns their strength against them using brutal, brilliant countermeasures. By the final round, the wargame devolves into chaos. Assassinations, betrayals, and even real-world political moves bleed into the game. Sota realizes the entire system is a powder keg meant to funnel power to one corrupt bloodline. Worse, one of the enemy commanders begins to suspect Sota's looping and sets traps specifically designed to bait or negate resets. In a horrifying sequence, Sota loops dozens of times against this single enemy, sometimes stuck in a reset trap where he can't escape without solving a mind-bending magical seal designed to twist his death against him. He nearly loses his sanity trying to escape, but eventually, with Caliph's reluctant help, and after revealing fragments of the truth, Sota sets up a counterloop, predicting the trap, dying intentionally, and setting a long con in motion. That ends with the enemy commander killing themselves unknowingly in the final loop. Thinking they've won, their squad wins the wargame. Barely, Caliph earns her place back in noble society, but chooses to disband the squad and go underground. She knows Velas' grave is still rotten, and something darker is watching the city. She invites Sota to join her in dismantling the systems behind the scenes, but he declines, for now. He has other things to chase, other powers to understand. Before parting, she says, "You don't fight to win, do you? You fight to remember." Sota's escape from Velas' grave doesn't bring peace, it brings questions. Questions that fester in his mind like rot. After winning a battle through loop after loop, his victories begin to blur together, and Sota realizes that even when he wins, he loses a part of himself. Every loop costs him memories, emotions, and sleep. Worse yet, he begins having dreams of events he's never lived, versions of people who don't exist anymore, and echoes of himself whispering things he's never said, desperate for answers. Sota follows a strange letter slipped into his belongings. No cinder, only a wax seal carved with a twisted sigil he doesn't recognize. The letter leads him to Noctvale, an isolated city cloaked in mist and superstition. Noctvale isn't ruled by kings or nobles. It's a place governed by riddles, veiled scholars, and whispers of forgotten gods. The people wear masks during daylight, and at night, They leave offerings of silence in the streets. Here, he meets a mysterious group known as the Echo-bound, mask-wearing truth-seekers obsessed with forbidden knowledge. They don't worship the gods. They study them, dissect them. And they've been watching Sota. The Echo-bound tell him that his power, the ability to loop and rewrite fate, isn't unique. It's an echo of a forgotten authority named Valus, the Mouthless, a god of memory and silence sealed away for defying the divine hierarchy. Sota doesn't believe them at first, until he begins to feel the presence himself. The loops grow unstable. He wakes up from death in the wrong moments. Sometimes the world is slightly off, a building too old, a face too new, someone calling him by a name he doesn't remember giving. Time isn't just reversing anymore. It's twisting to as he dives deeper into Noctvale's catacombs, guided by cryptic sigil codes and looping dream maps. Sota discovers an ancient temple buried beneath the city, home to a dead cult that once worshipped Valus. Here, he learns of the Sigil of Silence, a symbol of unrecorded death, memory decay, and unseen fate. The more he loops, the more this sigil grows inside him. The Echo-bound believe that if he continues using his power, he'll stop being Sota entirely. He'll become Valus' vessel, or worse, his replacement. Throughout this arc, Sota meets others afflicted by loop echoes, a girl whose life resets whenever she's called by name, a knight who remembers all deaths but loses a piece of himself each time, a librarian who exists in no timeline but collects books from all of them. These characters serve as reflections of what Sota could become. Their conditions are incurable. Their existences are fragmented. They make Sota wonder if he's already lost too much. The climax builds when the Echo-bound attempt to perform a ritual to unseal Valus, using Sota as the key. They claim it's the only way to break the divine chain of looping and free him from this authority once and for all. But Valus speaks to Sota, not in words, but in broken images between deaths. It never threatens. It only listens. And it remembers everything. In the final confrontation, the Echo-bound traps Sota inside a hall of mirrors beneath the city, forcing him to face dozens of versions of himself from failed timelines. They chant incantations in silence, trying to pull the god into him. But Sota, having looped hundreds of times through variations of this betrayal, turns their own ritual against them. He uses a fragment of anti-divine magic, gifted by a memory of a forgotten friend, to collapse the chamber, burying the cult and escaping with just a sliver of his mind intact. But as he limps from the ruins of Noctvale, he catches his reflection in a shard of broken glass. His mouth doesn't move when he speaks. The reflection smiles anyway.